We're continuing in our series on Jesus and who he is, and today we're looking at this phrase, Jesus Redeemer. If you grew up in the church like I did, you've heard that word or that phrase, or you maybe have heard, I've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. But it's not a phrase that I've used much in my life. And in fact, the circles that I surround myself with living downtown Chandler, 90% of them probably weren't raised in the church, probably don't go to church. And if I walked up to a few of them and said, hey, I just need you to know you've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, or even just looked and said, hey, I just need you to know you've been redeemed, they would kind of take a step back and say, what in the world are you talking about? And so even for myself, I've just really been processing that word Redeemer. I was talking with my wife, Melinda, and we were talking about it. I said, it's just, I don't know, there's just something about it. It's hard for me to grasp. She says, Paul, you do what you do. Make it simple. And I just kind of stopped and I looked at her and I just said, are you calling me dumb? She says, well, no. And so I looked at this word Redeemer. I looked it up in the dictionary because that's generally where I start. If you look at the definition in the dictionary, it's a person who brings goodness or honor to someone again. A person who brings goodness or honor to someone again. A couple times a week, my wife will text me or call me, or she'll yell into the other room and she'll say, hey, the boys are here. And so when the boys are here, I get up, I go outside, and the boys, it's not my accountability group. It's not a group of men that I'm meeting for breakfast and I'm going through life with. It's a group of 5th, 6th, and 7th grade boys that pull up on their bike. They live down the street at Chandler Gardens at the trailer park. And I've known them for years. And for, let's say the last 3 years, the last 2 years and 10 months have been so hard. But the last couple months, we've had somewhat of a breakthrough. And when they come over, Mr. Paul, we got a flat tire. Can you help us? Mr. Paul, what are you doing? Can we play in the backyard? Mr. Paul, can we play soccer? Mr. Paul, are you guys eating dinner yet? Mr. Paul, can we eat dinner with you? Mr. Paul, what are you doing? Mr. Paul, can we sit on the couch? Mr. Paul, my tire's flat again. Mr. Paul, my tire's flat again. Yvonne, it's the third day your tire's been flat. Yeah, I know. Mr. Paul, it just keeps happening. Well, it was like last week I realized, I think they're just going home and letting the air out of their tires so that they can come back and hang out. You see, when you look at a redeemer, it's a person who brings goodness or honor to someone else. The boys, they've had it hard. Their story is heavy when you hear it. And anyone that has lived a hard life automatically puts up a wall. It says, I'm keeping my distance. And there's this exterior that you just have to break through. And they're not letting you in, or you're not letting them in, until I know I can trust you. And so something happened with the boys. When I look at this idea of a redeemer, and I look at it from a theological perspective, or I look in the Bible and look at what does it talk about there, one of the definitions that it says there is to deliver from sin and its consequences by means of a sacrifice offered for the sinner. If you look at world cultures, if you look at history, anytime there is pain, struggle, failure, there is a sacrifice that is being offered to help deliver them from it. There is redemption that happens in that process. Pagan, Christian, whatever it is, there was this idea of we have to bring sacrifices. If you look at the Jewish people and their understanding of a redeemer, it means salvation from the states or circumstances that destroy the value of human existence. Destroying the value of human existence. Now the boys, they're good kids, but their value has constantly been attacked. It has constantly been brought down. It has been told, you are unworthy. They've been raised up with people that love them, but also with people that surround them that say, you're not worthy. So when the boys come over, they need to see that original definition of bringing goodness or honor to someone again. Mr. Paul, can we hang out? Mr. Paul, what are you doing? You see, you opens yourself up to the pain or the struggle or the life realities of the other. Today, I just want to look at this key idea of meeting God in the reality of your story and let him redeem and bring value to the whole of your life. I think this is something, as I've realized it, that I've wrestled with for a while. You see, because all of us have things that hold us back. All of us have stuff that we hold on to. All of us have, to some degree, chains. And the more we speak negative about who we are, the more we live in our sin, the more we hold on to our past, the chain gets bigger, the links get stronger. There's more heaviness that we pull around with us, and we stand there and we look at this chain, and I want to move forward with my life, but I'm looking at this pain and this struggle and these addictions and these stories and these things that I continue to tell myself. And I'll even possibly just maybe put it aside and pretend it's not there, but you can hear it, and the person walking with me can see it. You see, in the Old Testament, it talks about chains a lot. And it talks about this idea of redemption and being redeemed. The Israelites were brought out of Egypt in Isaiah chapter 52. They're talking about that, and it says, wake up, pull up on your boots, dress up in your Sunday best. Those who want no part of God have been culled out. They won't be coming along. In other words, they've made a choice. They don't want to go on this journey with you. They don't want to be a part of it. Brush off the dust. Get to your feet, captive Jerusalem. Throw off your chains, captive daughter of Zion. God says you were sold for nothing. You're being brought back for nothing. You have been redeemed. You see, what happens is we feel like there's just too much. It's too big of a price. And God is saying to them, throw off your chains. Like, stop carrying these around. Stop holding on to it. Throw it off. You see the Israelites again in Babylon. They're in captivity again. They keep getting pulled back into these same sins. It talks about in Isaiah how they were redeemed out of Babylon. Even that looks like not only them as a people group, but as individuals. I don't know if you've ever been at that place in your life where it feels like not only are you chained down, but you are at the absolute end. And there are no alternatives. And there is nothing else to do because life just keeps exploding and imploding. And it is just, I'm done. Well, in Leviticus, it gives them an option. They can sell themselves into slavery. My debts, my bondage is so much, I'm going to sell myself into slavery. But as a family member, I can come alongside that person. And I can say, I am going to buy them out of slavery. I'm going to release them from these debts. And it even goes every 7 years, you are to release the lands. You are to release your properties. But then 7 times 7. So every 49 years, they call it the year of Jubilee. And the only reason I know that is because 20, 25 years ago, I was here. This chain was just wrapped around me. As an entrepreneur, you have really good successes that you tell people about, and you lose your shorts on a daily basis. And I had just gone through a season of just losing and losing and losing. And I even felt like I was trying to do what God was leading me to do. And I felt like an absolute, complete failure because bankruptcy is the only option. I don't know a way out of this. But my theological training was telling me and screaming at me, you're wrong, you can't do this. And I sat with my dad, who's sitting over there. Say hi, Dad. And he says, let me tell you about the year Jubilee. He says, every 49 years, the Israelites were granted a redo. It was a once in a generation releasing of the chains. And everything went back to its original owner. The chains were not voluntary dropped. They were mandatory. This was you get to start over. You look through the Old Testament, you see the story of Ruth, you see the story of, there's the story of this Redeemer over and over and over again, and every single time the story is the same. You are in bondage, you are being held back by chains, you need to throw them off, and the only way to do that is to let go. That is not who you are. You see, but we tell ourselves, no, that is who I am. This does define me. This is my path, but that's not who you are. See, there's another passage in Isaiah that they would repeat and tell themselves over and over again. They would speak this as a truth. This is what the Lord says. He who created you, he who formed you. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. You see, when life became unbearable, they would hold on to this and they would say this. God created me. He formed me. I can't have fear because I have been redeemed. I have been summoned by his name. You are mine. You see, when the boys come by, when the boys hang out, the truth that I have to tell them is that God created you. God formed you. God has redeemed you. But I do that by just simply being with them and loving them and changing their tire every single day. But when you shift your thinking of who you are, it's easier to release the chains. You see, in the New Testament even, Paul is writing to the church of Colossians, and he's writing them. It starts with this: for this reason, since the day we heard about you, we have not stopped praying about you. You see, they were doing something that people were beginning to hear about. And so he says, we've heard what you're doing. And so we're not going to stop praying for you. We continually ask God to fill you with the knowledge of his will through all the wisdom and understanding that the Spirit gives, so that you may live a life worthy of the Lord and please him in every way, bearing fruit in every good work, growing in the knowledge of God, being strengthened with all power according to his glorious might, so that you might have great endurance and patience, and giving joyful thanks to the Father who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of his holy people in the kingdom of light. For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness, and he's brought us into the kingdom of the Son he loves, in whom we have redemption and the forgiveness of sins. You see, what he's saying is, this is who you are. This has a hold of you. But you're living continually in the land of this darkness. In reality, we're called to live in the light of the sun, in the beauty of your story. You see, the bondage, the pain, the sin, the addictions, the struggle, the self-doubt, the self-harm, the false narrative, the stories, the failure, all of it. We just, like I said, want to hide it. But what happens when you tell people, look, I lived in this kingdom of darkness, and I hold on to this chain still to this day, but I've released it, and now I live in the light. You see, I need to walk away from it, but I can't forget this. And for years, I tried to forget and was embarrassed about my failures, and I didn't want anybody to know. And then I realized over time, my story helps change the lives of others. And why would I hide my failures? So we have to learn how to retell our story. And not only do you have to learn how to retell your story, you have to learn to breathe. And we may think that breathing is an easy task. But when you're thinking about your breath and your breathing and what it does to your body and how it forces you to slow down, when you breathe in the truth of how you've been made, and you breathe out the life that you're trying to live and pursuing. Henry Nouwen is one of my favorite authors. He's in the same vein of C.S. Lewis. And he goes, I was a theological professor at Harvard, Yale, Princeton. He said, I'd authored 30 or 40 books. From a world perspective, I had had complete success. And yet every single day I woke up and I told myself everything that was wrong with what I was doing and why I was in the wrong place. He goes, it was as if I couldn't get ahead. Regardless what I did, the chains continually had a hold on me. He said, so I started for 30 minutes a day. I just started breathing. He said, on every breath, I told myself something good about myself. On every breath, I talked about or thought about how God had made me and changed me. Every breath, I talk about how my life had influence on others. Every single breath told the truth of who God had designed me to be. You see, kids have the ability to just know that they have been created by God and they have been redeemed and that they are these beautiful creatures. My grandson, Monroe, the other day scored a goal and he jumps up, puts both hands in the air. It's me against him. But he runs all the way down the court looking at me and he just screams, I am the greatest. And I didn't like that, so I scored a goal on him. And he goes, oh. He scored another goal. He says, see, Pops, I'm the greatest. So I scored 3 more goals on him. And he stopped one of them. On the one he stopped, he says, I'm the greatest goalkeeper in the world. He walks inside and he starts drawing and he says, I'm the best artist there's ever been. We make him dinner. Oh, I'm such a good eater. Goes to bed, Pops, I'm really good at going to sleep. Like, this kid narrates everything. I'm the best at brushing my teeth. I'm pretty much, there's never been anyone like me. Consistently. And I'm like, yep, you know what, buddy? You are. And then he'll end it with, Pops, you're my best buddy. And he says, Pops, I love you. Can we play soccer tomorrow? Because I'm the greatest. Like, it's like even a no contest. So, but you're invited. You see, we have to learn to retell our story. We can either carry this around with us, we can try to hide it, or we claim it. And we just say, look at this is my pain. This is my struggle that I'm living through. You see people that have overcome addictions, they don't try to hide the fact that they are an addict. They tell everyone, just so you know, this is who I am. The change starts in your mind. In your mind, you're telling yourself you cannot succeed. You cannot have success. You cannot make it through. One of the favorite things that I do is on Mondays and Wednesdays from 10:30 to 11:45, I teach a class with Justice College called The Theology of Compassion and Justice. The day before class, the week before class, I was beyond panicked because the person that talked before me is an amazing person, incredibly academic, and her, I don't even know what it's called, syllabus was so intelligent, as it should be. And I started telling myself, I can't do this. I can't step into this. What was I thinking? I'm not a teacher. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I can't go in the classroom. And on the first day I stepped through, I realized this is the most beautiful place I've ever been. So every Monday and Wednesday, I sit there with 37 students. I even have a couple students that aren't in my class and aren't getting credit, but they show up because they said they like it. I gave them an A. And I was talking to my mom about the joy that I have in teaching. And her response was, wow. She's sitting over there. There you go. Hi, Mom. And she wasn't insulting me, but she said, I just remember praying that you would make it through high school. You see, my mind is wired differently. Memorizing, in my opinion, is virtually impossible. The academic world scares me to death. But I've learned to release the chains on who I tell myself I am, and I've learned to embrace the beauty of what is up here. And when Palmer or somebody else says, hey, I've been thinking about doing this, I can picture it in my mind, and I can start to build it. And I tell myself in my 30 minutes, on Wednesday, I sat in my office and I told myself, no, you're creative. No, you are smart. You have the ability to do these things. Like I literally still daily have to tell myself, here is why you are created and you're formed and you're redeemed. The chain is still there. The struggle is still there. It talks about in Ephesians, it says this, it says, even before he made the world, God loved us and chose us in Christ to be holy and without fault in his eyes. God declared in advance to adopt us into his own family by bringing us to himself through Jesus Christ. This is what he wanted to do, and it gave him great pleasure. In him we have redemption through his blood, the forgiveness of sins, in accordance with the riches of God's grace. And this is the plan, to be put into effect when the times reach their fulfillment, to bring unity to all things in heaven and under Christ. I was reading this last week about that, this idea of being adopted into his family. This phrase where it says it gives him great pleasure. And it says to bring unity into all things. You see, this idea of being redeemed through all things means redeemed through all addictions, all abuse, all forms of poverty, all painful stories, all heartbreak, all brokenness, all of these things, all of this. He's bringing unity. And it gives him great pleasure. And we're adopted into his story. Kevin and Joseph came over for their 82nd flat tire. And they're on the side yard. We're just kind of hanging out, and I'm working on the bike. And I said, hey, just so you know, when you guys come over here and you play soccer, my grandson mimics everything you do. Because he got his running down the court from them, the screaming, the yelling, the wah! It's all from watching them. I said, everything you do and say affects him. They instantly went on the defensive. What did we do? Like, I'm not saying you did anything, but you've said some things. What did we say? I said, you just used words that my grandson used, and they both started smiling. He goes like, what did he say? I said, no, it doesn't matter. They were like, was it a big one or a little one? Was it really bad? Or I'm like, he just said a minor one. It's no big deal. But it was minutes after you guys left. I said, you have the power to influence my grandson. I said, I want you to know that your story is valuable. And it has meaning. And you have purpose. And Kevin just stood there. He's got this little smile, and he stood back, and he just looked at me. He says, Mr. Paul, will you adopt me? And I said, will I adopt you? He goes, yeah, will you adopt me? I'm like, bro, I already adopted 4, and I'm raising my grandson. He's like, yeah, what? And Joseph's like, you've adopted 4 kids? I said, yeah, and I'm raising my 5th right now. I said, they just keep appearing. His question, while it was a joke, will you adopt me, was also filled with truth. See, Kevin and Joseph, they both have some really hard life struggles that they are still living through, that they are absolutely in the middle of. And I said to them, I just want you to know that you are forever welcome at our house. I may not answer the door sometimes, but you are welcome. You are loved. Unconditionally, I will be there for you. I will be a father figure for you. And I'll be there for you. See, this idea of a redeemer begins to change when you understand the effects it has on everyone else around you. And I went in and I told Mel what Joseph and Kevin said to me, and this idea of adopting. And she said, I hope someday, she says, you're not ready to tell the story yet, so I'm telling it. You're not ready for it yet, but your whole life you have been wrestling through this. So what do you mean? She says, the adoption story. And I didn't understand what she was talking about. She said, you've always looked at the perspective or the angle of adopting our 4 kids from your eyes, from your story. And I instantly went from a small chain to a big chain. You see, when I go speak places, and I didn't realize this till last year, and this last week when she said it to me, I finally understood it. When I go speak places, my opening line is, my name is Paul Gunther. My dad's name is Paul Gunther. My grandfather's name is Paul Gunther. You know what my son's name is? Kevin. And that's what they do. They laugh. And I say, yeah, we just decided to go in a different direction. When I was in junior high and in high school, I started dreaming about my son, Paul Gunther, the 4th. I started picturing what he would look like. I started dreaming of what it would be like to have a son just like me. That was everything in my family line about who I am. And for whatever reason, we weren't able to create a kid. So we adopted these 2 kids in Oregon. Their parents were drug addicts. And we found these 2 kids in Guatemala living in an orphanage, and we adopted them. And I tell people my story of, we adopted 4 kids. If you've adopted 4 kids, or if you've been adopted, you understand the pain that comes with adoption and the struggle. And when it says in Scripture, you have been adopted into my family, that means there is some sort of brokenness, and I'm now bringing you in, and I'm making you whole. And here's what Mel said to me. She said, you've always looked at the adoption story from your eyes and your loss of the 4th generation of Paul Gunther. And you failed to see it from your children's eyes of what it means to be rescued, to be brought out of a horrific situation. You see, it changes things. It changes your perspective. And I realize that I've been holding this and carrying this. And I'm afraid to let go. I got an email this last week from a guy named Jeff Delp. He's the principal at Willis Junior High. I did not get permission to share this story, so I will share it with you now. And Jeff sits on our board for Live Love, and Mel and I wrote him an email and just said, hey, this is what we're doing at the Oasis. We're kind of in a hard patch. We need you guys to be praying. And Jeff knows Kevin and Yovan and Yadir and Bubba. He knows all of them. Joseph, he's their principal. And he wrote us this email. He said, I want you to know that the boys come to school and they talk about the meal that Mel, you made for them the night before. The boys come to school and talk about working on their bikes. The boys come to school and talk about their favorite thing. They did this last week was just hanging out in the backyard and playing soccer. And then he said this, and I Googled it because this is too intelligent for any human to say. He said, confidence leads to resilience. Resilience leads to hope, and hope to a future. What he's saying is your chains that you carry, these things that you hold on, as soon as you have the confidence that you can walk away or you can not let them hold you back, that confidence leads to resilience. And what Kevin and Joseph need is confidence to know that they are made in the image of God. And as soon as they begin to grasp onto the truth, they have the resilience to start stepping and leaning into life. And as soon as you have resilience, it leads to hope. And hope to a future. I asked them last year, what do you want to do with your life? What What do you hope for? What are your dreams? They're like, we don't have any hopes and dreams. What are you talking about? We live downtown Chandler in the trailer park. There are no hopes and dreams for us. I said to him the other day, what do you hope and dream for? I want to be an engineer. I want to do this. I want to do that. And they've started to lean into their future. You see, all of us have a chain. All of us think it's a small chain. But if you're watching the other person, you can see that we're all dragging around this huge chain. And God is saying, I have adopted you into my family. I have created you. I have formed you. And I've made you new. All you have to do is let go. God, thank you for your love, for how you pursue us, for how you make us new, for how you call us to make beautiful stories out of our lives. Thank you that you have redeemed us. Amen.